Welcome to the European Car and Light Commercial Vehicle Production Outlook briefing prepared by myself, Ian Henry of AutoAnalysis for the SMMT. The economic and financial recovery has been at some risk in recent times due to the major concerns regarding the Greek debt situation and worries about the other PIGS economies, i.e. Portugal, Italy and Greece. And in the UK we've also got some uncertainty following the recent election, and there is a fear of a double-dip recession here. However, over the last couple of days, the EU finance ministers, the ECB and the IMF appear to have stabilised the situation with a new, rather expensive financial package. We also have to bear in mind, of course, that the scrappage schemes which boosted production and sales last year have come to an end, and we know from Bank of England data that they had increased registrations last year quite significantly. There's also the serious issue of overcapacity in the European production arena. There is structural overcapacity in Europe of as much as 9 million units a year, and we have the problem that the vehicle manufacturers have historically been reliant on closed car plants. They appear to be preferring to cut shifts and slow down line speeds. We know there are two plants closing, GM in Antwerp and Fiat's plant in Sicily, terminally in Maresi. But elsewhere, such as the Jaguar Land Rover, GM and indeed Renault in Spain, either decisions have been delayed or new models have been added to keep the plants open. We have a number of doubts about several other European plants. Saab Trollhättan, we wonder whether the new company will survive long term, and PSA's plants in Madrid and Rennes, we wonder whether there will be new models to replace the existing vehicles. In Mitsubishi in Born, we wonder if this plant will be viable in the long run if the SUV market continues to fall. We now think that the VMs will in fact redouble their efforts to avoid closing plants. Instead they will focus on cutting shifts and slowing down the line speeds. Looking at the production picture in Europe at the moment, we think the recovery is actually beginning now, and despite the threat of the financial crisis hitting Europe, we think that there is a good chance that 2010 will actually be much better than had been hitherto thought. The early figures for Ford, Opel, Volkswagen, Audi, Nissan and Hyundai are all very positive. We have the increased production boost from smaller vehicles, EVs and hybrids now coming on stream. And we now think that in 2010 the volumes will actually be up over to 2009, and we think there will be a further recovery in 2011. But the real climb back will come from 2012 once the financial crisis has completely been erased and a range of new models come on stream. If we look at specific vehicle manufacturers now, BMW 2009-2010 recovery has been aided by a whole new series of models, the 5 Series, the 5 Series GT and the new X1. And in the quarter one of 2010, sales are up nearly 14%. It will also make its first full electric vehicle, the mega city car at Leipzig from 2013, and in order to free up European production plants to make a range of new models, it's shifting some production of the 3 Series to South Africa. Daimler, there's been the big news since our last report of a wide-ranging joint venture with Renault, which covers small cars, LCVs and other areas in powertrain, and cross-shareholdings between the two companies. Daimler too has seen its financial performance improving, and it should be profitable throughout the whole of 2010. It too is changing its production footprint, it's making more versions of the C-Class in Bremen, and it's bringing in the state version of the CLS to compete against the 5 Series GT model from BMW. At Fiat, there's been a new business plan which will, on the one hand, involve up to 5,000 job cuts by 2014. It will also see production of the Fiat Panda move back from Poland to the Alfa plant in Naples. We've seen that the Fiat plant in Sicily could be sold or possibly closed, and there will be an electric vehicle version of the 500 from 2012. We should also note that Fiat is going to increase production in Italy overall to near 1.4 million units a year in the medium term. Ford, the main news since our last report has been the confirmation, subject to due diligence, of Volvo being sold to Geely of China. That deal should be complete by Q3. Electric versions of the Focus and the Transit Connect have been confirmed and will start appearing on the roads from 2011. The real boost behind Ford's performance, however, comes from the new Ford Fiesta and the upcoming Ford Focus and C-Max. At GM, the news involves government loans from the UK being confirmed, and a plan is being worked on to save the Luton van plant. The early success of the Astra, the new model, has involved new extra shifts being put on in both Germany and Poland, and a night shift is being added in Spain for the new Meriva. Interestingly, GM Europe is no longer responsible for the GM plant in Russia. The Antwerp plant will close by the end of 2010 unless a new independent investor is found. At PSA, the main news concerns the increasing orientation of the company towards electric vehicles. They are sourcing some from Mitsubishi, but they have confirmed they will also add production of what's called the BB1, although this may be made on a subcontract basis by a company independent of PSA. The Portuguese van plant has, to us, surprisingly been retained and indeed invested in for a number of new models. That's been supported by Portuguese state funds. Production of the C3 Picasso, the C4, the 206 Plus and the 207 has been slowed following the end of scrappage schemes, and shifts have been cut at most PSA plants. The good news at PSA concerns the introduction of the Citroën DS premium brand, and in Russia the Mitsubishi PSA joint venture plant has formally opened in late April. Outside of Europe, there's been substantial investment confirmed for engine and powertrain production in Brazil and indeed Argentina, and there is the possibility of luxury car production being shifted to China. At Renault-Nissan Dacia Group, the major development is also the joint venture with Daimler, which will focus on small cars, electric vehicles and vans. But also there's been increasing orientation towards electric vehicles. We've had the Nissan Leaf confirmed for production in the UK alongside the 4 Renault EVs to be made in France, Turkey and Spain. And construction of the 3 new battery plants for these electric vehicles in the UK, France and Portugal is now underway. The Dacia plant in Romania is now reaching capacity limits, and in order to meet worldwide demand it needs its new plants in Morocco and Russia to come on stream soon. At Tata we have had good news with the news that plans to close the UK plant are now under review following the recent upturn in Land Rover sales, and the new model program at Land Rover is indeed accelerating. There will be more Range Rover branded products in the future. Toyota, as I'm sure you all know, has suffered from major problems worldwide with recalls affecting the company globally. In Europe we have had layoffs in France attributed officially to the sales decline due to the end of the scrappage schemes, and the TPCA joint venture plant with PSA has also seen shifts cancelled. There's a very positive story at Volkswagen where sales across the group are rising and investment is continuing in new models and electric vehicles and production tool making. The problem area at Volkswagen is SEAT, where losses are mounting, and Volkswagen has yet to address this problem, although SEAT Q1 sales rose actually 50% year on year. At Skoda there's a reorganisation of the production footprint underway, for example with the Roomster moving factories and shifts being added for the Superb and the Yeti. And group sales at Volkswagen are up nearly 25% in Q1. So in conclusion, overall we have a more positive outlook for production in Europe. There will be no double-dip recession. We're much more optimistic than previously, and assuming that the Greek debt crisis does not spread and the UK political situation is resolved quickly, we believe the outlook for 2010 is very good indeed. Certainly with the recent news that the European finance ministers have solved, or appear to have solved, Europe's financial problems is also good news. However, the overcapacity issue is not being addressed, and we do have concerns about the delays in decisions regarding the closure of a number of plants. In summary, with regard to what the VMs are doing, we've seen that Daimler's formed a JV with Renault. Fiat is cutting jobs and bringing production back from Poland to Italy. Ford has finally agreed to sell Volvo, subject to legal formalities, and at GM it's actually adding shifts. PSA is growing its electrical vehicle business alone and with Mitsubishi, and is following Renault in this regard. There's much uncertainty at Toyota following the recall crisis, but at Volkswagen, other than the problem at SEAT, the company is performing very strongly. All the information that I refer to in this briefing is covered in detail in the Outlook report, which is now available for download from the SMMT website.